Thank you. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So just for the recording, we are deferring the approval of minutes from the last meeting until the next, just while we finish off some of the content on those minutes, and then we will circulate those electronically, post them on the Confluence, and we'll have those approved at the next eRequesting TDG. There we go. So coming up next month, we have our Sparked Connectathon. Registration is still open. I'm not sure how many tickets are left, but the registration is still definitely open for those. So 20th will be the work group meetings, and then the 21st and the 22nd will be the Connectathon itself for both the core and the eRequesting tracks. There is a note there to say that if you have missed out on a ticket for any reason, just email events@HL7 and they will put you on the wait list. This one is in Brisbane at 275 George Street. If anybody wants more info, reach out, let us know, and we can help you out with that. So we will look at the ballot for comment discussion with Michael Wilson, and just so that everybody is aware, on the call today there will be a couple of co-chairs, myself included, and some facilitators from the eRequesting TDG. So we're here to help with all of the meetings and all of the discussions. Feel free to reach out in private message if you want some help or you want some guidance with anything to the co-chairs. They're mostly the people with the Sparked logos that you'll see on their profile pictures. We'll be monitoring the chat. We'll be monitoring hands up for discussion points. And if you need anything, please reach out and let us know. I will pass to Michael Wilson for the discussion on the ballot for comment, and then we will go through the next couple of discussions as well. Michael, if you want me to drive, not a problem. If you want to drive yourself, no worries.
No, you can drive. I'll just put in the chat the links for registration for the Connectathon events as well, so that's there for anyone who wants to follow those. But you just jump to the next slide and ballot for comment. So we're reaching the ballot for comment phase for eRequesting. So ballot sign up is actually open now. So it's open. It was open from yesterday until the 5th of August. So you need to sign up during that period. You can't sign up after that period. So you have to get in during that time to do your sign up. You have to be an existing HL7 Australian member, current member, and will be a member during the ballot period. So I'll just paste in the chat a link for that registration. So you need to make sure you get in during that time to do registration if you want to vote during ballot for comment. The ballot period will be open from the 12th of August through to the 8th of September. And then we'll go through that reconciliation phase after that from the 9th of September to the 31st of October. Once we've resolved all the issues that were raised during ballot, then we'll do the ballot snapshot at the end of that, which will be aiming for the 29th of November. So I might just jump to the next slide. It's about what the ballot for comment is. Like I said, to be eligible to vote, you need to be a current HL7 Australian member. The point of the ballot for comment, we're using it early in the development cycle, so that's why we're doing it now, so that we can solicit community feedback and see how we're tracking and going, and be able to incorporate that feedback during our development process. It also gives us the opportunity to solicit feedback from outside the TDG. So we're talking about this week in, week out, but by going out to ballot for comment, it gives us the opportunity to reach wider and further for people to comment on the specification. And what this will do, so the issues that will be raised during the ballot for comment, it'll give us that guidance and direction so that the technical design group can then further shape the specification based on that feedback. And just an important note, it's only a ballot for comment, so this process doesn't authorise the publication of the specification. So it's just for comment to sort of give us the direction and feedback of how we're going at the moment. Might jump. Are there any questions on the ballot for comment while we're there? We'll move on to the next one. You can always, you can always come back to us later as well. So the progress checkpoint. So this is where we're up to now. So just talking about that ballot for comment. So that 5th of August isn't actually the published date. That's actually when we'll take the snapshot for the ballot for comment. The ballot for comment will be a day or two after that. So working backwards from that, we've completed the wave 1. We nearly got through wave 2 in the last meeting. So we've got 2 outstanding items to finish off today. and that's body site and insurance. And then we're into system actors for the rest of this meeting, and then moving into system obligations for those actors in the following meetings, and all other business to get into that ballot for comment there on the 1st of August. And moving on to the next one. So I'll just put it in the chat as well. So this is the current build of the IG. The changes, the things that we voted on in the last meeting on Thursday haven't made it into this yet, but they will in the near future. So after we make decisions in the TDG, those changes will be put into this build. So you can continue to sort of look and follow those changes as we go and see how those decisions appear in the IG. So keep an eye on that. Just following to feedback then. So as we talked about the ballot for comment, it's only open for voting for HL7 Australian members, but anyone can provide feedback on the IG. So all you need is a HL7 account, which you don't have to be a member to have a HL7 Confluence account. It's free, you don't have to pay for it. So anyone can sign up and get a HL7 Confluence account. And then that gives you the ability to submit feedback. So you'll see at the bottom of the IG pages, every page, there's a propose a change link down the bottom of the page in the red bar at the bottom. So if you click that, it'll take you to the Jira system, log in or create a HL7 Jira account, and then you can provide feedback on the specification. So anything that we've gone through in the last few meetings or things we haven't gone through, you can actually provide comment and further feedback to that. And that'll get picked up by the people that are voting in ballot for comment. So I would encourage anyone who has any feedback at all on anything we've been working on to provide that, and provide that now so that it can go be looked at during the ballot for comment. So others can look at those suggestions you've made and pick them up and vote on them in the ballot for comment. And like I said, anyone can do this, so you don't have to be a HL7 member to do this feedback. And I think that's me.
Thank you very much. So I believe Wave 2 service request was with you, Andy?
Okay. How many more do we have left?
Just the two. I believe it's body site and insurance today.
Oh, that'll be fun. Okay. Do you want to rock into body site?
Cool. There we go.
So just to recall where we were last time, we had talked about the code, and I think Michael Osborne had given an update on the approach for coding for both pathology and radiology. In the case, we had then talked about body site relative to those codes, but there was a broader then discussion about the potential need for body site for other purposes potentially, and seems that the most logical thing to do then is to provide a optionality for body site where it's deemed appropriate and necessary. We're proposing that it be must support. So if it is provided or you do have it, then you do include it and do use it. If you don't have it or it doesn't make sense, don't include it. You don't have to. Cardinality, there was a discussion around whether we limited it to one or we allowed for many body sites. And there seemed to be an argument to say that there was at least a case where many body sites were appropriate, and therefore probably isn't appropriate to overly restrict it at this point in our evolution. So I think the proposal we would have is that it is cardinality 0 to many, that it must support, and being the codable concept, and the value set it is bound to is the NCTS body site. Does anyone have any questions?
No, doesn't look like it.
Okay, well, I'd like to propose that we accept this proposal, which would be must support, zero to many, and the preferred binding to NCTS body site. Do we
have a
have
second?
someone?
Sorry? I'm happy to second.
Perfect. So it has been proposed and seconded that a service request body site is a must support of yes, a cardinality of zero to many, and will be binded to the NCTS body site. We'll put a link in the chat for anybody who can see, because there are something like 35,000 terms in that NCTS body site. But we will open the poll for voting currently. Awesome. So that should come up on everybody's screens. Looks like most people are done, so we'll close the votes in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. For the minutes, 84% voted. We had 40 of 49 in the affirmative at 82%, 0 negative, 9 of 49 or 89% abstaining.
Awesome.
All right, Andy, next is service request.insurance.
You're on mute, Andy.
Thanks, Phil. In terms of implementing e-requesting in anger, insurance is a core part of the transaction. The semantics of insurance are something we will need to talk to in terms of the adherence to the recommend. Is this a recommendation? Is it an absolute? Those kind of things. But in this point, we are making a minimal at the moment link, and that is to say that you can include insurance information in the by referencing a coverage resource, and that we would allow for many such references to be provided. And in that coverage resource is typically the details of insurance coverage. We will have further, I think, to say about this in future as we dig into how we want to use that insurance coverage. But for now, from a service request perspective, we just want to lay the foundations for its inclusion. It's not mandatory, and we're not saying it must support, but we are saying that when you do include it, this is what you do. Any questions?
Doesn't seem like it.
So, Andy, this is where billing advice would be clear?
Yeah, billing advice. So whether it's self-pay or whether it's
Private, Medicare, bulk bill,
private,
DVA.
yeah, or various forms of insurance.
And if our scope is community requesting, then what would zero billing information mean? Private. I'm falling into the exact same arguments I had for patient class.
Next wave.
Encounter.
I think we need to address this in the next wave. At the moment, we're just basically saying that there needs to be provision for.
Actually, can I just go here without a must support flag? We're not, though. It doesn't fall into the next wave.
I don't know haven't we already said that it's a must support, or are we voting on that as well? Even though there's no must support here on this image, I think it was actually voted in as a must support in the previous meeting.
Okay, great. That answers my question. I'll put my hand down.
I mean, someone probably needs to check the minutes, but that's
That
been my
needs-
memory.
That needs to be updated if that's the case.
I didn't think we talked about this last meeting. I thought we talked about encounter.
No, it was about 2 or 3 meetings ago, last wave.
Right.
I'll double check the link that, yeah, it's showing as must support from the link that Michael provided earlier.
David is also asking if this is the codable concept or is coverage the codable concept?
So coverage is the resource. Inside the coverage will be something that articulates the specific coverage level, and potentially more specific stuff again. So whether it's private insurance, it might actually say which private insurance and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's all stuff that we would need to deal with in the future.
Because this is at the moment referring to the basic fire coverage resource, not a profile of coverage.
Carmen has just put in the chat for us as well. Service request insurance motion, that service request insurance for path and diagnostic image is must support with the cardinality of 0 to many. And that was the minutes from the 20th of June. Thank you, Carmen.
And that would align with our encounter discussion, which for me was a billing discussion as well. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but, Danielle, at the moment, we're not linking this to the AU-based coverage.
Can I ask why? Do we not like it? Is there a problem with it? Should we fix it? Or, yeah.
We
Why
probably
not
didn't realize
AU-based?
there was one, to be honest. We might have that might have been an oversight.
Then can I make a friendly amendment that we say AU base is the default? I mean, the base profile did come out of the work that you guys were doing on the diagnostic stuff that you took through those previous connectathons before we started the eRequesting technical design group
And
that went into AU base.
Yeah, it's got those additional codes that we needed for self-pay. So
Yeah.
yes, I would totally support Danielle's.
I second it too.
Okay, so friendly amendment that the proposal that was just that we repeated from Carmen in the chat that the motion is that service request insurance for pathology and diagnostic imaging is must support and cardinality of 0 ... and the reference is to AU base coverage.
Well, Cummins has actually already agreed. What today we're actually basically constraining it just down to the reference type. So the actual proposal or motion for today would be that the reference is AU base coverage.
Okay. And just to be clear, the AU base coverage, the only two things it really does is constrains identifier and type.
It doesn't even really constrain identifier. It just offers some options.
Oh, that is true, because you can include any identifier.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm happy to.
And it's only preferred by coding as well. So it's not
I'll
even.
Second.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So just before we get into the vote, we had hands up from both Ruben and Chris if there's anything that they want to add.
I just wanted to actually more of a question. Why are we excluding claim response? Are we certain we don't need that?
So we don't do approvals, do we, in Australia? That's kind of an American concept. I'm happy to be corrected, but
I'll leave that one to the pathology experts or radiology experts. I'm not sure is the short of it.
Yeah, we don't do pre-approval in my sphere anyway that I know of.
Yeah, same for me.
My only grumble here is as I had last week with Encounter, is I'd prefer it was 1 star, because now I'm getting orders with no billing advice.
Chris Kane has added, from a RAD perspective, there's no pre-approvals for Medicare services either.
I was just going to add that absence of a value here doesn't indicate there's no billing. Someone asked that question. And I guess, Angus, to your question, isn't that billing that you would determine at the point of care anyway?
Today, every audit screen I've seen has a choice for the doctor to pick, which is generally private, DVA, bulk bill, or concessional. I'd add that, you know, 80, at least in community, like 80, 90% of that stuff is bulk billed, so they're selecting Medicare. If you didn't, if we have struggles, like if you select Medicare but you don't give us your Medicare number, so we can't, we start then falling back to like private. So if people start sending us, unlike today, if we get orders that say nothing, then I guess we're going to have to default to, we're going to privately bill the patient, because no one told us how to bill any other way.
But it's only guidance, Angus. So it's, from, recently I went and had a test done, and it was basically, even though my form said blah, they still asked me and got me to sign my life away to the fact that I was going to pay if they couldn't get Medicare rebates. So, I mean, it's already my support. So if someone has filled out that checkbox, then they must provide it. So it's really only allowing those systems that, for whatever reason, don't have that capability to present that particular value, that then
it's
they
further
can still send you an order, and then it's really your business to work out how you get paid.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree, but it's further abetting the notion that you don't need to ask. And so now just everything gets left to us. And, I guess.
Yeah, and this will matter to a lot of patients as well. I mean, we're probably the better off on this call. So it's not a matter of having the test or not, but it will be for some people.
I don't disagree, Heath. I'm really just waving the flag that it's not what we do today. But I hear your logic. I don't know if there's a government angle to this. Like, can we bill to Medicare because we got an order that just said nothing about how to bill? Do we ask the patient at the time of collection?
We're not trying to enforce policy through an integration specification.
I think the problem is, if we bite off this is being mandatory, then we're going to have to be very clear about the semantics of what's expected to be done with this information. I think while we are at this stage of our evolution, it would be more flexible to leave it as optional until we get to a point where we have a full understanding of the presumed requirements associated with this information.
And this doesn't stop us from potentially restricting this further when we get to wave 4 or whatever, we actually talk about specifics of coverage. And I mean, I'm actually concerned about the star as much as I am about the 0, because what does it mean if I get multiple coverages? Which, what are you going to do with that, Angus?
I take your point. I'd been so focused on the 1, I hadn't focused on the star, but I agree.
But we heard in the previous round that some people may want to provide multiple insurances, so we're not limiting things at this point in time in our evolution.
So we've got hands up as well from Sanjid. You were next.
More of a technical question. I can take it later as well. I think it's more about reference coverage. It's AU based. Is it going to be technically challenging in case a coverage gets included in AU code down the line? Will it lead to more changes? Is it like tech debt? That's my question.
AU core will only restrict AU base further.
Yeah, and that's my point. I mean, in case if you're referencing an AU-based profile and if we constrain it further down the line, that will lead to changes, multiple changes, right? Upstream and downstream.
We've got, yeah. I think we, again, like we will probably continue to constrain this over years, I suspect. So we're always going to have that, but at the moment we're keeping things pretty open.
On that particular topic, I just want to comment on the relationship with AU Core there, where there is an expectation that the second release of AU Core takes into account the requirements that have been developed through the eRequesting work in order to support a set of core profiles that are built from this work. I do not expect those to conflict with the decisions that have been made in eRequesting at all. That shouldn't be the approach that is undertaken through the core profile work. You know, I mean, things happen, but the expectation really is that the work here and where we're trying to operationalize that informs what can be supported at a core level rather than core just unilaterally deciding that no, something that we've actually worked through in this space is wrong. So I wouldn't be particularly worried about that.
Philip, you were next with the comment or question.
Yep, I was just confirming. So from the AU coverage side of things, Angus was suggesting the use cases are, or well, the choices would be private, Medicare, bulk. There was one other choice there. Have we confirmed that that's there? I guess where I'm concerned is again, thinking about the hospital workflows, especially on discharge. You may be a private patient in a public hospital or a private patient in a private hospital. And so the insurance for the encounter that you're currently on is a private insurance, but there is no intention for that to carry over to the pathology test you may be getting a requisition for 2 weeks later or whatever, in preparation for follow-up in an outpatient clinic. So what my concern is that we're using a concept that might be used for other purposes and other use cases. And does this one actually give Angus the details he needs for processing? Because that's a legitimate use case, but not somehow changing it from the insurance that you're using for that visit, which may not relate to the visit that the pathology or radiology would be done on or reported on or billed on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So to summarize what you're saying, like we could just get a dump of all the insurances that the EMR has at the time of ordering, irrelevant of what the orderer may or may want us to use. Is that what you mean, Phil?
Well, if we're using, my concern with coverage is that in other use cases, the expectation would be is that would be the insurances that the patient has for that particular encounter. And there's not necessarily an intention by the doctor that the insurance that you're using for your hospital-based encounter at the time the order is placed or the request is placed is the same as what should be used for processing the pathology or radiology test in an outpatient scenario. In an inpatient, yes, of course, it's going to come back through that claiming process. So my concern here is that kind of thought is are we using coverage in this case to mean two different things, a current insurance in some instances and other use cases, and then a coverage that is a proposed insurance for use specifically here. And so does it have the details you need? And is it actually consistent or clear which one is being used here? Because if it's the wrong one, that may not be the intention. It's fine for you to know it probably, but that may not actually be the doctor's intention at the time of ordering, that it just inherits the insurance from the encounter that the doctor is seeing the patient on right now.
So some of the work that's been done so much, Philip, is that this coverage is in the context of this request, and to the point where it is actually a contained resource. So again, this profile is so immature in its evolution that we're not even going down that route. It's just we have this high level concept that we want to get some coverage information. Whether we the definition of this is not even clear yet, I guess, or constrained. We're just basically at a very, very high level in this iteration of requirements gathering. So
yeah, that works.
That's why we're keeping it so very open at this
too.
point, because we don't know what it's going to look like in the all use cases at this point in time.
Yeah. Thanks, Heath, and thanks, Angus, too.
In the interest of time, we'll take the final comment here from Michael Wilson. You've had your hand up for a while. Just before we jump into your comment, Michael, I want to bring everybody's attention to chat.fire.org. So these sorts of conversations where we can't necessarily get through it all immediately, we do have our AU eRequest channel here on chat.fire, so we can keep this conversation going. We don't have to wait for every TDG for this to come up and keep asking these questions. It's a free sign up. There's no cost to this. Everybody can sign up and jump in, and we can keep this sort of conversation going. So Danielle's just put the link in the chat there, and we can ask those questions. You'll see a lot of familiar names in here, so it's a lot of the same people and a lot of the same knowledge. So if everybody wants to jump over there, and we can keep these conversations going. Michael, we'll take your comment, and then we'll look at that proposal again.
Yep, that was my point, to try and bring this back around again. Just saying again, the decision we're making now is for ballot for comment. So there's opportunity to provide comment for this through the ballot for comment process, through feedback and the specification. And also we're going to start testing this after that ballot for comment. We're going to do it at connectathons and the like. So just be aware that we don't have to solve all the problems now. Let's make a decision as a starting point. Let's see what feedback we get. Let's see how we go when we test it. And then we can move forward and make changes to this moving forward. So I think that's where we don't need to know everything up now. We just need a position to have a starting point, so that then we can move forward and test and see how it goes. So I think just bring it back around. There was an original motion. Does it need to be remade now?
Yeah, we did have a motion in a second, but given the conversation, I'll let somebody else re-motion and re-second on that one if there's anybody that wants to, or propose an amendment to the current proposal.
Reaching back into the mist of time, I think I was the motioner. I think the motion was that we use AU base coverage profile. So that's what the reference would be, is a reference to AU base coverage. I'll motion that.
And I'll second again.
And a second from Heath. Okay, I'll open the voting on this one. So the proposal is service request on insurance. The reference will be to the AU base coverage. And then are we still keeping the cardinality at 0 star? And the cardinality at 0 star. Thank you.
You don't want to separate the two?
Well, we've already made that. That was wave one. Like, that's gone through a decision-making process.
Yeah.
Okay, let me relaunch this one then.
And just to note, it is must support.
And it is must support. Thank you, Andy. Yes. All right, looks like voting's calmed down, so we'll call it in 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Somebody got in right at the end there. Let the minutes show the motion passed with 33 of 46, or 72% in the affirmative, 0 in negative, 13 of 46, or 28% abstaining. Next up, we'll have Brett. Brett will be going through the system actors for us. We've got just under an hour for this discussion. There's quite a few items to get through on this one and some explanation from Brett. So Brett, I'll hand over to you whenever you're ready.
Cool. Actually, I might take over sharing. That way I'll flick backwards and forwards.
Just yell out if it doesn't let you, and I'll move you over to a co-host.
That should be all right. Cool. All right, cool. So, hooray, we made it to wave 3. Congratulations. So we're going to talk about actors today. Go on. So I'm just going to give a bit of background on just what we're talking about when we talk about actors. And I really want to frame this discussion to make sure that we are really trying to work out what we're going to put in draft material. So what we're trying to do here is get a basic premise of how this is described, and also some definitions that make sense. So what we're really looking for is glaring problems, probably with what's being proposed here. But of course, we will welcome feedback on what is decided, and we'll also, of course, have our draft for comment process as well to have more formal feedback, as well as raising it more informally, maybe in committee. So basically, we're talking about the main thing we're talking about is actors and the associated interactions related to those actors. So really, these are, I've lifted some definitions out of the fire specification for some of the fire artifacts, but really it's about an entity acting in a role, and primarily we're talking about data exchange roles here, because we're concerned with the data exchange primarily. So whilst it's these definitely relate to real world actors and business kind of actors in systems that which have a whole bunch of associated sort of authority and legal restrictions on them, we're primarily talking about data. So we really want to talk about, in terms of the data we've been talking about, what are the roles and responsibilities of these entities. Having an actor is useful in the sense that we can then say what are the common interactions between those actors. And when we're talking in the fire space, we're talking about fire interactions. Essentially, we have a set of RESTful fire interactions that are available to us. Plus, we can talk about operations and things as well if we have more sort of sophisticated things to do. But primarily, we're thinking about fire interactions and how these actors use them. So in the kind of fire speak language, we have a thing called an actor definition resource, which is effectively a definition of the actor's content, and that actor will be associated with a thing called a capability statement. Now a capability statement gives you a way to describe the detail in terms of what that actor can do in terms of fire interactions, and also any kind of relationship to the data profiles we've already been talking about. So really, as an actor definition, it's really a very generic description of what the role is, and primarily now we're trying to kind of have an entity that we can hang other requirements on, in terms of the interactions we need to sort of have to exchange data, and also any obligations on the content of that data that's being exchanged. So I'll just bring up this obligation slide. This is actually part of the Wave 4 kind of content. So given we have some actors, we will be looking at the profiles that we've kind of just developed, at least for service request, in terms of the things we've identified as being sort of key elements, and in terms of what we need to achieve. And actually specific actors then will be will actually address what particular obligations there are around the data and the data use of those elements as part of the description. So we'll get onto that, but that's just to kind of frame, how actors would relate to that. And just to, for the fire people, there are a set of artifacts that kind of support these concepts. So we've been talking about our kind of data profiles. So we have a service request profile with a set of sort of constraints and choices there. In Fire, we use structure definition as a resource type to describe that. So that's essentially what's going into the Fire implementation guide at the moment, and that lets us, define the data and our kind of any rules we have around our data. But you can see as well, from those definitions, we can add obligations, which means in a particular usage, a data element may have particular obligations attached to it that an actor, is obliged to implement. And we also relate that to a capability statement, which is what an actor can do in terms of interactions, but then also which data models they need to use with those interactions. So there's kind of this linked view where we have now a more complete formal picture of how system actors will interact with services and the data that they need to supply and use, and any obligations around that data. So that's a bit of framing. We can get into this. We probably should have some more specific sessions on this material, but as a set of concepts, hopefully that gels in terms of what we're trying to do now, just conceptually in making these decisions, and then effectively we're going to turn these decisions into a representation in Fire that will get reflected back into the implementation guide. So I have attempted the one sentence overview of what we're talking about in terms of the actors and things. So just to read it: exchange of requests. So requesters, service providers and patients can achieve provision of diagnostic services. So that's pretty vague. But primarily we're talking about, we know we have requests, we know we need to exchange them between people want to place them and provide the services, and we also know the patient is involved in that process in terms of being able to select services and know what they need to have done. So with that, this is the simplest thing. We spent a bit of time on this. There's a few co-chairs and others that spend a bit of time trying to get this down to something that's pretty digestible. So primarily we have a set of roles, a set of actors that we have sort of are proposing that will meet some of the requirements here. So to talk sort of client and server terms, we have some client actors, which are effectively systems that are making calls to other systems, and they each, they basically call out to other systems, and we have a server concept in the middle. So primarily we're talking about placing requests, a server that's enabling the exchange, a filler that can get access to those requests and then provide services. And we also have a patient that can also access those requests as part of their journey in terms of selecting providers or basically helping get that service fulfilled. So with that, on those linkages, we have suggested there are a number. We've talked about service request as a data model. So we have our profile for that we've talked about, and we have some interactions there. So they're essentially the Fire RESTful interactions we've kind of identified so far. So primarily, in terms of sort of Fire interactions, we have a placer that would do creation and updates to requests. We have a filler that would be able to access those requests and get the data. Yeah, Phil.
Do we have, I guess, a view yet of what the patient or the systems are going to do here? So I kind of put it in the wiki piece of the exact order in which some of these things happen. So what triggers the request? Are we expecting that the order in, say, the eRequesting placer will then push that order to the eRequesting server? Or is it the patient presenting themselves for an appointment or requesting a service or whatever, goes through that requesting server, and then the eRequesting server requests the details from the eRequesting placer? Is this the level where we get to that? Because that direction of flow is critically important for the global vendors. Critically important.
Yeah. So I think, I guess these are roles. So the order of events, I guess, depends on, which role you're filling at any point in time, I guess. So there is primarily this client-based activity from the placer. So it is a push effectively, because it's the ability to essentially make that request available. How that's triggered, though, is another question. I guess in terms of whether that's pressing send on a client system or it's some other mechanism that's causing that to be placed. And that's unstated, really. I don't think we are implying a particular workflow. It's more just a data role in the things. I don't know any of the other guys.
I guess I'd argue that it's absolutely critical that we land this. And let me just give you the practical example right now.
Yeah.
So what we seem to be heading towards is an HL7 V2 type messaging thought process between the order from the placer into the eRequesting server, meaning that it's broadcast or it is proactively sent, but doing it in a FHIR standard rather than an HL7 V2 standard. Okay. The global EMR providers have not been asked to ever in any country at this point yet. Doesn't mean that they won't, but they have not been required to meet that push. So all their FHIR servers are RESTful servers sitting there waiting to be questioned about the orders, the allergies, whatever they have, right? They're not proactively sending anything until they respond to a request that was triggered externally to them. So I'm not saying we can't move with this strategy. And it makes sense. Like, it's actually working in the V2 world today, right? But as a group, we have to say, are we doing this consciously? Are we asking everybody to develop those pieces and recognizing that may not be in concert with what's happening worldwide, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, right? And so I don't know where to raise this question. It's the thing that has given me the most heartburn about this group since we started, but I don't know where to raise this question appropriately, where it's not so far down the line and we are so late in the process that it's too late to change anything or make that conscious decision.
Yeah, I think as much as anything, that's a scope question in terms of what we're considering. So Phil, can I get you to explain? So that requesting part, so at a point in time, there's a desire to create a request. Is that how it works, or is it these are orders that already exist, right?
Yeah,
and you are just accessing them. Yeah,
these are orders. So in today's world in EMRs, the doctor is going to, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, et cetera, they're going to place an order for the test that they want, pathology, radiology. And those orders are going to look different depending on, are they a request for, this visit inpatient level care, or I need you to do it in 2 weeks and not part of this care, et cetera. So the details around all that can be quite different. And that order sits there. And in the V2 world, those orders have the chance to trigger and drop to the traditional V2 interface engine. And if they need to be proactively sent anywhere, they are, based on logic of those details and which order is selected or whatever. In the fire world, at least today, and I'll say this for all the, I shouldn't even use the proxy global vendors, for the ones that are meeting US meaningful use requirements and a few other requirements out of Canada and the UK, they have a fire server that's sitting there quietly, that if you ask it for that order, it will respond back with the order in the fire format, but it does not proactively send any orders outbound today in a fire format through the fire server.
Yeah. And I think whilst we have put this placer into the mix, like that sounds like someone in the filler role that is accessing an existing order. I'll go to Angus. I can see him waving.
I'm wondering whether Phil's so from our building the standard point of view, we have to separate these actors as separate actors to define what they do. But that's not to say that a system such as a Cerner isn't sort of compressing those all into one system, right? You might say, I have an eRequesting server that has orders in it that have been created by my Cerner EMR. And for my own business choices, no one can place an order in my Cerner EMR except Cerner myself. So I am the placer and I am the eRequesting server. I am all in one. And therefore, we really don't care how you got the order from you, the placer, to you, the server, right? You don't have to do any of this. You just have to service that the eRequesting server can be requested by the filler to get the order. And even in your scenario, you might say, well, that filler is my pathology system, which is all part of my same system, right? And I'd almost argue then we don't need fire at all. You can use it, but we have to build a system where these guys are separated. And you might, a Cerner, need to support that. I don't know. You might need to have external systems placing orders into your Cerner EMR, so they are the placer, and your Cerner EMR is the eRequesting server. But on the other hand, you're also just putting your own in, right? So these are sort of logical roles which we have to define. And in some cases, you might have one piece of software that plays all the roles or just two of the roles. Is that what you're getting at, Phil?
It is to some extent, and it's a variant, right? So if, let's say, the hospitals have, you, Angus, Sonic Healthcare as their provider, or the patient's chosen to exercise their right to go do that, we haven't landed yet, as far as I'm aware of, is the eRequesting server, you, Angus, your software, sorry, not you personally, but Sonic Healthcare requesting of the Cerner instance, the Oracle instance, for the order based on whatever token the patient presented, or whether it goes to a central repository and you're confirming using up something, all of those kinds of use cases. So I agree with you on these different pieces, but my challenge is that when is it in this process that we get to that workflow piece where we can then say the implication of the decisions we've made here and which system or systems are playing in these roles? Because you are correct in the way that you just described it. If it was a direct connection between you and me, and my eRequesting server just has to sit there and wait until you ask me a question, great, I have that. I'm ready to do that with 2 clients today, right?
Can I just jump in? Because I got to disappear and I had my hand up, but
go on.
Dropped it for me. I mean, my understanding is that what we're talking about here at the moment is just around who are the actors. We're not talking about what are the interactions or the obligations at the moment. That will come later. And I understand, Phil, you're saying we can't do the actors without knowing what the interactions are, if I'm understanding. But I was a little bit confused about
together.
You thinking that this was a V2 process. I certainly don't see this as a V2 process overlaid on fire. Almost the absolute opposite. But at the moment, we don't know what that future architecture is going to look like. We've got some indications of what it might look like, and there's certainly interactions here that I expect will be there in the future, but we're not ready with that to be able to start to articulate this. So this is pretty abstract at the moment. And really it comes down to, can we agree that there is a placer, that there is a patient access mechanism, that there is a filler, and that there is some abstract thing in the middle that is playing a server role that may or may not get used by the placer in some circumstances, because they are also, the placer is also the server, etc. But I got to drop off, so that was my
thanks Steve. Yeah,
I mean, I'd love to, I think we got interactions on the screen, but I think they're
we're
for
going to
guidance.
talk.
They're not what we're deciding on today, are they, Brett?
I've added them in.
Yeah, but I think they're helpful. But
yeah, because I think
maybe it's confusing what we're deciding on today. I think that we're dealing with that later. Going back to Brett's really cool diagram, we've got to go around that loop. We're at the top left-hand corner today, but ultimately we've got to go all the way around by the end of wave 4 at some point.
Yeah. So I think Heath's point is a good one. Like, it's really saying, do we believe these roles, exist? See here, and making sure that we kind of agree, in a system these roles could exist, and then talk about what they can do. That doesn't mean these are the only roles, perhaps, that we need to consider, but also it's basically trying, and we're also trying to keep it it is pretty abstract, because we're kind of not saying it's any particular kind of system. So it's about whether you can relate to that, I guess, as a system. Michael, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Angus and Heath had said there, that currently this diagram here has a single eRequesting server in the middle, but that doesn't mean there is one in the middle, right? And this could be sliced and diced depending on the architecture and the ecosystem that this is going to run in. You just need somewhere that the service requests sit, and then they're pulled from for the fillers. So I don't look at this diagram as, hey, there's a centralized eRequesting server that's there. Like we said, it can be part of the placer system, be part of the filler system. It could be a federated set of eRequesting servers. So there's nothing here about the actual architecture. It's just about what those different actors, what their role is, what they need to do.
Yeah, that's good. Roma?
I think this diagram is quite nice in that it matches quite well the HL7 V2. Like, a lot of current, if you currently do pathology with HL7, you have someone placing it. I mean, you don't always have patient access, admittedly, but you have your filler receiving messages, which is your read and search. You have your places doing your create and update with your HL7 sends, and if you do have client access, then so I think it's comforting that we're sort of looking at that and seeing an analog of the HL7, because it means that probably it can be implemented by whoever's building the system, because they've already done it with a different, with bars and pipes instead of curly braces. So that's kind of, I think, should be encouraging.
Yep, that's good to hear as well, because I think we have to kind of be trying to relate it to things that exist as well. It is obviously, though, we are talking about FHIR kind of oriented exchange, so we've kind of assumed some FHIR interactions and assumed some, with the FHIR structure and things like that. It is also very, like, there's clients and servers, which is again around that kind of RESTful interaction model. We definitely went through.
Though it's worth, like, even just calling out, like, how, like, the Genie Sonic thing works with these things now, and that's not to say that's how we're going to do it, but it's kind of this model that's in at least some of the co-chair's head, and that is that eRequesting placer client actor is a doctor place an order. It's going into a FHIR server in the middle, and that's that interaction done. The eRequesting filler has registered notifications in that server, so that when that happens, he gets a notification sent to him from the eRequesting server, and in response, he can go then pull that order from the eRequesting server. Or if it's not for him, like it was a different labs, but you're going to claim it, the eRequesting filler can scan a barcode and then go ask the eRequesting server, do you have this order? I want it. So I just was calling that out because we did build this so that it was familiar with current practice and V2 messaging, but I really wanted to highlight that it's not just, it's not like we're trying to propose that a message goes from the eRequesting placer to an eRequesting server like health or medical objects and then gets delivered to the lab. It's not just like a straight through.
Yeah,
it's just it's a repository in the middle that people are querying.
And it's not quite the same roles and responsibilities trigger transaction kind of thing, right?
So
yeah.
Michael had a good point in the details of what we're talking about, and that we need to decide today whether or not these roles exist versus what their exact details are and how we implement them later on, just whether or not that they are existing. And Brett, looking at your sort of slides, and the next one's coming up for the definitions, well, not even the definitions, but the ideas surrounding placer client and filler client and things like that.
Yeah.
If we can sort of start to put in motion the proposals, whether they do or don't exist in the first instance, and then we can come back to these details.
Yep, I think that's good. And so I'll move on.
I guess we're asking the blue boxes. Do we think there's more blue boxes? Is there less?
Exactly right, Angus.
Yeah. So, and like we did a bit of wordsmithing coming up to this meeting to just describe, especially the clients here, but also how the server fits in. So everyone can read this for themselves. You'll notice it's pretty. We're trying to make this language pretty generic. So it's hopefully not hitting too many trigger words in what it's saying. But yeah, it's really just trying to carve out a particular role. And for Placer, that's really a system that's initiating a request in some way, and being able to essentially place that request to be able to be serviced is really the scope of it. So I'll let everyone have a read and just see if there's any wordsmithing suggestions, but also mainly, is there any glaring issue with what is being said here?
Brett, we might have to move pretty quickly on these, given we've got 20 minutes left if we're going to get through actors today. We don't have much time, so.
I struggle with the last word provided here, Brett, to the point that we've kind of been chewing on. We're not. I know you're trying to say the data is there and provided, but it sounds like you're providing the request, like the placer is giving the request to the filler. That all required data is actually collected and provided. Like, are they providing? It's just that it's accurately collected.
Should it be like made available?
Well, yeah, made available, yeah.
Because you may send it, or you may.
I think too, we don't want to get too caught up on this. If there's absolutely problems with this wording, we should address it. But if we're just wordsmithing, I think there's plenty of opportunity, ballot comment, and feedback later. So I think we just need to make sure there is nothing wrong, obviously wrong here, that it absolutely isn't. Rather than get too caught up in the actual detail.
So the current proposal as it stands right now is that the eRequesting placer and client will exist, and they will sort of be doing the general idea of making data available for fillers in the eRequesting server. So if there is someone that is happy to motion on that and second on that now, then we will take the vote on it. If we think there needs to go into detail at a later time, we can do, but this is just whether or not they are existing.
Yeah, I will motion that this a client actor exists, and here's some definition. Yeah,
I'm happy to second.
Phil got first.
Phil was in there first on that one. Danielle?
Just wanted to clarify, because we just said client actor. Do we mean placer?
Oh, sorry. Yes, placer client. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yep. Thank you. So eRequesting placer.
Yeah, I'm proposing we use this name and these words to add an actor to our definitions.
And Phil, you're still happy to second on that one?
Yep. Sorry, had to get off mute. Yes.
Cool. Vote coming now. That'll come up on everybody's screens. All right, we seem to have slowed down. So 3, 2, 1, we will close the vote there. So let the minutes show that the proposal has passed. We had 30 of 36 in the affirmative, or 86%, 0 in the negative, 6 of 36, or 17% abstaining. So that is for the eRequesting placer client.
Cool. So moving on, I'm just going to do the same thing and propose that we have an eRequesting filler client. And here's some words. So being able to find and retrieve requests so that they can be fulfilled. And yep. So it's a starting point in terms of being able to fill a service request.
So same again, we can get into the detail on this in a later meeting. It's just whether or not the eRequesting filler client does exist with this sort of general idea behind it that Brett has put together for us. So if there's any immediate comments or major concerns, let us know.
Well, apart from the fact that the filler doesn't manage the request.
Manages the fulfillment.
The placer manages the request. And in fact, I think I'd be pretty happy if you said there is a filler that fulfills requests. Full stop.
Cool, we can do that. Brett, any major concerns around that one?
No. I think that actually simple. There, that's more direct, and I like that.
Perfect.
So let's So Andy, can you say the words for the recording?
The eRequesting filler system is responsible for fulfilling requests.
Awesome. So that'll be in the minutes. We'll get that updated. Is there someone that wants to put out the motion for proposal? eRequesting filler client existing with Andy's new shiny words for us.
Why did you drop that they don't have to find them and retrieve them? Like, I'm just fulfilling requests in Magic that just magically appear in front of me.
That's fine. Add that if you want. Less is more. I'm just trying to get around the fact that we're kind of trying to put a whole bunch of detail in here where we all agree that there's the concept of someone who places an order and there's a concept of something that fulfills the order.
Would you be happy to drop the second sentence and just leave it? eRequesting is responsible for finding and checking documents so that service providers can fulfill them.
Yeah, it's got no full stop anyway, so couldn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Exist. So it's not even a sentence.
I think just drop and manages the request through. So providers have the necessary details to fulfill the requests and so through the fulfillment process. To fulfill the request through the fulfillment process. It sounds a bit weird.
Maybe just stop after fulfill the requests.
Yeah, they just don't manage. They just don't manage requests. They fulfill requests.
Yeah.
Can someone state that a little bit clearer?
Actually, I want to drop the whole entire second sentence because it's unnecessary. Because it's so service providers can fulfill them.
Yeah.
So we assert that there's enough there to fulfill them. Yeah. So I don't need to say anymore. You happy with that?
Yes.
I propose we accept this without the second sentence.
I second.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Angus.
We've got a second. Angus is the second. Okay, so we are voting on the proposal that the eRequesting filler client exists with the description being just that first sentence. Lovely. All right, seems to have slowed. So in 3, 2, 1, and we'll let the minutes show that that motion has passed. 31 of 35 in the affirmative, or 89%. 0 in the negative, 4 of 35 abstaining, or 11%.
Cool. All right, cool. Moving on. Now, this one's called patient access, eRequesting patient access client. So this is really giving access to request details for the patient. So that is the ability for the patient to know what they need to do, but also help in choices in terms of selecting a provider. So any issues on this wording?
Again, just that the eRequesting patient access does exist with this basic description here, and then we'll get into the details.
So what do we intend by manage their requests?
Yeah, I think that's probably loaded, isn't it?
Yeah, like I was expecting, and I don't know if it's the right words, like read-only access to their requests, but I wasn't expecting them to be able to manage or edit or change.
Okay. I propose we remove and manage.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay with that. I'll note that it doesn't mandate management through a digital sense. Patients should be able to manage their own requests.
Oh, I see. Yep. Yeah, in terms of their...
Because it's the point that they can view it so that they can manage their request. Whether that happens in a digital interface or not isn't mandated, but you know.
The word manage can mean many things.
Yeah, it's a bit loaded. But they can view it.
That comes through the obligations, though. The manage comes through the obligations, right? It is that. It's by itself. It doesn't give you any definition of what that manage is, but and that gives them the ability to do things with it. I think was the
I think it has to stay.
Yep. We'll constrain it when we get to the obligations.
Yep. That's good.
Chris has made the comment in the chat. What if we reword it to say with interact?
Wow. Then I say, how are they interacting?
It's not much different than manage, is it?
Yeah.
All right. So fair, says Chris.
Thanks.
We'll leave that then. So is there, can someone clarify the wording for me for the motion?
I think we got to leave it.
We're leaving as is. Leaving as is.
Okay, cool. Okay. So is someone going to motion on the existing then for me?
Jenny Well, I'll motion.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jenny. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. So vote coming your way. The proposal is eRequesting patient access.
Actually, I don't understand this last bit. Enabling patients to choose service. I suppose they can choose service providers, but is that a managing thing they're going to do?
No, it can be the token. It could be whatever, right?
It requires, it gives access to details. The details and
okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. I just suddenly had a fear that they were editing the request to change the lab. But
these wordings are a landmine. So
yeah. No, I'm good.
Motion stands. The vote's coming out now. Fantastic. Okay. People were a lot happier with this one. All right. So closing the votes now in 3, 2, 1. And we'll let the minutes show that the motion has passed. 32 of 37 in the affirmative, or 86%, 0 in the negative, 5 of 37% in the abstain, or 14%.
Cool. All right. Moving on. Now, here's some language for a server. So this is essentially what the clients are talking to. So there is some ability that we expect requests to be consumed by this server, but also being made available to others as well as part of that filler and patient use. So hopefully these words reflect that.
Have a read. Any major concerns, let us know.
Why aren't we using the Fullerton placer names in these definitions?
Why are we using them?
Why aren't we? We talk about the service system allows service providers to retrieve the details of request to facilitate the fulfillment process. I'm assuming we're talking about fillers.
I was thinking the other way around for this one, but because I was trying to keep the language more generic, perhaps.
I mean, the whole point is that they're in each other's pockets, so seems a little artificial to not kind of use the already defined placer and filler actor definitions rather than trying to redefine them here.
I'm not following Andy. So it's using the words eRequest filler and eRequest placer and patient access system. What?
So the next one, the service system allows service providers.
That there's
which
suddenly
I
then
presume
switched.
is a filler,
Right.
allows fillers
switch.
to retrieve.
Yeah.
So you're saying maybe it should say the server system allows fillers
eRequesting.
to retrieve. Yeah, fair enough.
Except we've
So
already
for the minutes-
defined that is what fillers do anyway.
For the minutes, then we will update. The service system allows eRequesting fillers to retrieve the details of requests to facilitate the fulfillment process and enables the patients to view and manage their requests.
Yeah,
Rachel had. And do we change patients to enables patient access systems to view and manage their requests to be consistent?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Patient access systems to view and manage. Okay. We've got two hands up from Rachel Evans. You're up first.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? So, Mike.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, look, I think this is similar to the last one where we've got system actor role, a requesting server, a requesting placer, a patient access system. The last sentence here is talking about other roles, which are actual people, right? Service providers and patients. So I put a message in the chat too for a suggestion for improvements to the last one, which could also apply here, which is the last sentence essentially gets replaced by, these roles allow service providers, like if you still want to keep these terms, and I would argue that you actually just don't need the last sentence at all. I think, it's, and he's put a comment in as well that we're talking about system obligations versus personal obligations. And if this is a system role definition, then I don't think it necessarily has to refer to actual, end user roles as such. I think that can just be implied that obviously a patient uses the patient access system, but we don't need to call them out unless you want to be explicit. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's helpful because we're talking about system roles primarily, and we're not gonna. We don't necessarily want to get into the business layer on top of that.
How a user interacts with the system role is not in scope.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Rachel.
So just in the interest of time, then Dan, you're up next, and then Roma will come to you, and then we'll put this proposal forward.
Thanks. Just wanted to clarify that the statement there is including both the filler and requester, the patient access, but you're excluding or have missed the placer in terms of updates. Does that need to be accommodated for?
So more around being able to update the requests.
Update notes, update status in case it gets cancelled.
Yeah. So maybe it should be submit and maintain.
I thought facilitate the fulfillment process kind of encompass that. Like the fulfillment process, which we're still to define, may require updating statuses. It may require cancelling things.
Yeah.
All right, we can work on that
I
one.
think, I think that's a fair, I think the language could be, it's not just submitting. Yeah. So, and it's implied in the last sentence, but yeah.
We can fix up the wording on that one. So Roma, we'll come to you.
Why are we defining its functionality in terms of the other actors? Shouldn't it be defined as an independent entity that can do things, i.e., like the diagnostic service system manages and stores diagnostic system requests. It allows for their updating and searching. And because it doesn't matter, if we were to change the definitions of filler at some point for whatever reason, we don't want to mess up our server definition. So wouldn't it make more sense to define the server as a server that does stuff, not as a server that does things in light of other definitions we have made when there doesn't seem to be a reason for that?
Is it because of authority? Like the server can only let fillers do certain things and places do certain things. Can't let fillers do placer things and places do filler things.
You can add authority to the sentence, just like it allows with with respect to authority or something. You can add authority to the word. You don't have to specify the types of roles here. That seems like overkill.
Yeah, it's actually I kind of like the more generic language in general rather than naming other entities. Just because like it's almost it doesn't matter where those service requests have come from.
So
yeah.
What we're going to do,
we have a limited set. We're not saying that there are other actors outside of fillers, places, and patients. We've actually limited it to those
until there
three.
are. Yeah, until there are. So
but then we can
and it doesn't change the
actors.
definition. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We have to do with what we have now, right? What we know now.
Yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to put this one up on Confluence so that we can discuss the wording around this. We'll move this proposal over to the next meeting with the other two actors that we have, and then we'll put this forward for vote at the next meeting. So we'll put the link in the chat here for the link to Confluence. We'll email that out as well as soon as we have that up, and then we can make the comments and we can talk this through on Confluence and chat.fire as well. There we go. Danielle's put that in the chat now. So we do only have sort of 60 odd seconds left. So we'll vote for this one in the next meeting. So thank you, Brett, for all of that. And we will put this forward as soon as possible. So the next meeting will be on the 18th, where we will continue this discussion and we'll begin the Wave 4 stuff, assuming we can get through all of this as well. Again, please have a look at the chat. The links are in there for this discussion, the R1 actors. Jump into chat.fire as well, and we can continue discussions and really get into the weeds there if you want. Like I said, there's a lot of familiar faces. If anybody's not sure, reach out to us either on Confluence or email, and we can get those links out to you. Excuse me. I will call the meeting there. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We'll make a note of the proposals that have been put forward today, and we'll get all of the minutes updated from last meeting and next meeting. So thank you to everybody that helped facilitate. Brett.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Well done, Brett.
Oh.